Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Mayfield and Friends. Today, my guest is none other than Plundering, a level 3 skiller. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Plundering. Who are you? And I kind of already said what kind of account you play, so you can just kind of go into more detail on that. What are you doing in game right now, and who are you?
Yeah, I'm a level 3 skiller, normie skiller. Um, I'm currently going for 200 mil rune crafting, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
And for the people, I'm sure the people will want to know at this point of recording. Currently, it's November 6th. So how close are you right now?
I am 11.3 million experience left
And
away
it,
from 200 mil.
I'll say, and in our initial chat before this, you had said that this will be your first 200 mil ever. Is that true?
Yes, yes, it will be my first 200 mil skill in on any account.
And so for that, what made you decide rune crafting sounded like a good choice first?
Well, rune crafting was also my first 99 skill in old school, and I was originally going for base skills, like level 120 virtual level, and then I realized that runecrafting was one of the two skills, other than Slayer, that still had ranks that were available under 100. So I figured why not go for the two-digit rank?
What rank are you anticipating ending off on?
Probably 83.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Are you excited to cement yourself on the top 4 pages, top 100?
Yeah, it'll feel pretty nice.
All right, now moving on. What drove you to a level 3 skiller?
I'm sorry?
What drove you to like be a level 3 skiller? Because I know it's not everybody's first account choice.
Well, the main reason is I just really dislike quests and the traditional method of training Slayer. So being a level 3 pretty much negates the need to do any of that.
I guess that's true. It's true. So moving forward again, what is your history with RuneScape and old school? Like when you start playing, all that kind of stuff.
Back in so I started playing during Christmas break in the year 2007, and for about the first day or two, all I did was stand in the Lumbridge General Store looking at all the items that were being sold and bought from the store, and that's pretty much all I did for that first day.
Hmm.
Um, Eventually, I started making pures for free to play PKing, and I'd be a member to take advantage of Soul Wars and Range Skilled, so I could make a prodded account, which was basically an account that has low HP. And I did that for a pretty long time until the evolution of combat was released.
A likely story
And
for I think many people.
I'm sorry?
I would say a likely story for I think many people.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And basically, it ruined my account pretty much. And I decided to start over and ended up making a level 3 skiller.
And was that account one you made in RS3, or did you wait for old school to come out?
I made it in RS3.
And then for that account, how far did you end up getting on that account before you made the switch over?
I believe I had around 899s maybe, and my Slayer was in the mid 80s because I did a lot of Soul Wars there as well.
Mhm.
And I pretty much immediately switched over to old school as soon as it was released.
So I know a lot of people who listen to this probably did the same thing as me and you kind of did, whereas we played RS3 until the old school client was around. So moving back the years, if there was a skill from RS3 that's in there now that you could bring through nowadays that you enjoyed training back then, is there any skill you'd want to bring through, or is there, or do you kind of not like any of the new ones?
Um, well, the only new skill in RS3 that we don't have in old school that I actually played or trained was dungeoneering,
Okay.
and I did enjoy it, especially as a level 3 because people the way it was balanced was if you had a level 3 in your team, then all of the monsters and stuff would be much lower leveled so they could speed through the rooms and everything much quicker and get higher experience rates. So people would gladly bring along level 3s because they had an advantage by doing so.
Plus, we could also take care of a lot of the skill rooms that some of the mains didn't want to train for.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I know there was like a lot of like the rune crafting and thieving doors that were like 90 plus, and they were like, "Hey, come over to this room."
Yeah. Also, my favorite mini game, I guess, in RS3 was stealing creations
Mhm.
because there was a clan that did no combat games. So it was basically just skilling and very consistent amount of points per hour, and it saved a lot of money for both smithing and construction. Those were the main things that I bought from their shops.
So you
The
just bought the
tools,
hammers mostly.
yeah. I think they gave like 64K extra bonus experience per hammer.
Yeah, I remember people would do that, and then the barb assault leeching for the horn for agility experience as well.
Oh, yeah, I never did do that.
I never did either, but like I would always see people when I ran the barb advanced course, like running with the horn, and so I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I would always ask them like, "What's the horn for?" And like, "Oh, if you store it with points, you get bonus experience." And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty interesting." Do you ever envision them bringing things like that in old school, where you'll be able to do a mini game or like bring something creation in or the horn, etc., so that way people could get bonus experience? Or do you think that just kind of doesn't fit the landscape?
Um, I would enjoy stealing creations, but well, actually, it's hard to say because it could just be nostalgia, and the main reason I did it was to save money. And if I really doubt that if they did bring it to old school, then it would be similar in that you could get bonus experience. And I also agree that they shouldn't do that because then it would just be a matter of you'd feel obligated to do that in order to train the skill, in order to save money. But it would also probably make bar prices and plank prices go up because then people would be more willing to pay more for those materials because they'd be getting the extra experience.
So it could almost be a mild health boost for scaling supply economy, but it could also kind of ravage the landscape when there'd be like because I feel like a lot of people sit in like the meta mindset where like, oh, if I don't do this, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same reason why I don't think they should ever do like double experience weekends in old school because then everybody will be training just their gathering skills or their combats or whatever. And then when a double XP weekend comes around, everybody's doing their Bibles because that's when it's the best time to train because otherwise you're spending way too much money.
And as somebody who trains your Bibles quite a bit, as of right now, what would you think is the cheapest Bible 200 mil? Besides, I would know. I think a lot of people would say smithing just because you can like make money from it with the rune two H's. So, aside from smithing, what would you say is the most expensive?
The most expensive would definitely be construction,
And is that assuming oak doors or mahogany benches?
mahogany.
Okay.
If it was oaks, then I guess herbivore would be more expensive.
Oh, really? It's that much of a difference?
Yeah, oaks are around 8 GP per XP, and mahoganies are, I think, 14 or 15. And
Oh,
then
wow.
herbivore is around 10 or 11 with magic potions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little bit outdated on my knowledge of that kind of stuff just because I played Iron Man for so long.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good question for you. This is a question that I haven't asked anybody before because you're the second person I've had on who wasn't an Iron Man. So my question for you is: do you think the Iron Man game modes played a good part in bringing life back into old school, or do you think that things are now too catered for Iron Man and that they kind of ruined the landscape of the shape? They kind of ruined the shape of the way the game could have gone.
That's a really good question, and I'm I my memory is a little fuzzy, but I think the worst update was probably Zora and its very overpowered drop table that brought in tons of skilling resources and much made it so that all of skilling was not really worth it because you could get your resources much quicker from just bossing. And I guess wyverns came out before that, but they both contributed to that, and it kind of set a precedent for all future bosses
Hmm.
and raids.
So you think that maybe that like style of game mode kind of led them to want to put more skilling supplies on boss tables? Because I know when God Wars came out, they have the original, pretty much original tables from RS3, and they're pretty trash aside from the uniques.
Yeah. Um, but at least with God Wars, you could still profit even if you didn't get uniques, but you aren't getting just a ton of skilling supplies.
Hmm. And besides, so since Zora, we've seen monsters like I know Vorkath, when Vorkath came out, was the other big was the money dragon basically. It was Zora 2.0. And now because Vorkath can be dangerous, I know a lot of irons go for Hydra as their big money maker.
Oh
So
yeah.
I know you don't play. Do you play a main at all?
I do play a main, but I only have 77 Slayer on it, so
Okay.
I've never done any Slayer bosses.
Okay. So assume we're now that we know that you've never done Hydra, have you kind of seen what it looks like and kind of how they've broken the boss itself?
Um, I'm not really familiar with it, to be honest.
So just a little quick
I'll
rundown. There's a way if you move around the room, there's a way you can like skip phases and you can take virtually no damage. Like basically you only have to bring like 2 food per kill if you're good at it. And Hydra. Oh, I almost said Holdra. Whoa. So Hydra just kind of spits out supplies for irons. And even though it's a 95 Slayer requirement, Slayer has gone up in speed exponentially as years have gone by.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So do you think having all of like the big moneymaker boss like behind Slayer is a good thing, or do you think they kind of still are going an incorrect route with giving all of these skilling supplies from bossing instead of the traditional methods?
I think having a Slayer requirement is it is a good thing, but the skilling supplies isn't a good thing. I think I really like the way that RS3 did the mining and smithing rework
Hmm.
by basically making it so that you just get a kind of resource that would allow you to gather resources the traditional way much faster. So then you'd have to be a kind of all around account, or you could just sell those bonus resource things. I don't know what they're called, and then skillers could just buy them and then make more money, kind of like blood essence, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, you're the first person that's talked about that mining and smithing rework. So, what do you think about a rework similar like that for us in the future? I know right now they just talked about changing the tick delay on most rocks besides iron, granite, and sandstone. So, do you
Oh
think that
yeah.
that's good for the longevity of mining, or do you think that in the future we might also see a mining smithing rework for us?
In general, I would like to see some skilling reworks just to make them more involved, and I guess profitable is always a nice thing,
Mhm.
and not necessarily more experience per hour, but minor bumps would be fine with me.
So, like, were you in favor then of the things like mahogany homes, kinda making construction a little cheaper if you wanted to go through the effort, or, even, Giant's Foundry, making smithing a little cheaper, but also still pretty decent experience an hour?
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of those things, and I like how they tie it into the traditional skilling methods, like with Giant's Foundry, the outfit makes anvil smithing a little bit faster, and with rune crafting, you get more money because of the extra runes from that outfit.
Mhm. Do you think skilling outfits have kind of come too far, or do you think that they have a good place in the game?
I definitely think they have a good place. I'm not Yeah, I don't think they've ever actually made the experience rates for those much higher than any of the traditional methods, but rather supplemented the traditional methods.
Okay. Now that we've talked a little bit about updates and all that kinda stuff, let's talk about you more. So, as for current goals, we already said that you're pretty close to 200 on rune crafting. Where do you see yourself moving on after rune crafting is done?
So after runecrafting, I'm going to be continuing my original goal of going for base virtual level 120, just because I like the clean numbers. That's always been just my guilty pleasure, making my skills tab look really clean and even, just very uniform and stuff.
Okay. And I guess that's a good way to segue into another good question. 200 mil capes or 120 capes? Which would you rather see come into the game?
Honestly, I'd be happy with either of them. I think most people who go for 120 capes will also go for 200 mil in that skill
Mhm.
because it's like, well, it's basically halfway,
'Cause 120 is like
isn't it?
106 mil, right?
104, I think.
104. So, if they ever did that, do you envision them for the longevity of the game, moving some of the skills to be going up to 120 physically instead of just virtually, so they could add more content behind the higher levels?
I think that would be pretty cool. And yeah, I would definitely like that.
Do you think
But
that's like
I'm
pretty?
not sure if that's something that they would want to do though.
Yeah, that's fair play. I know when Dungeoneering did it back in the day, it was kind of like a really weird thing. Um,
Yeah.
but I know I think every skill in RS3 now goes to 120. But that game's also been out for over 20
I think
years.
I think there's like 8 or something skills that go to level 120 now.
Oh, not all of them do anymore.
No.
Interesting.
There's like herb lore, dungeoneering, divination, invention, and I'm not sure of the others.
So do you think that this game will ever get to a point where they will need to, like, regardless if they want to or not, like they will like literally physically run out of skill tiers to go up to?
It's really kind of hard to say because uh in the past or all of the updates Well, most of the updates that we've seen over the past almost 10 years have been pretty much all combat updates, and where we see tier increases for gear and that kind of stuff, and not many new skilling resources, I guess. Like I
Mhm.
know we've had redwoods, but I can't really think of any other new supplies or materials that we got that are higher tier than what we originally had.
I think, Wrath Runes is probably pretty good,
Oh yeah, wrath runes.
and then, yeah, for mining, I can't think of any either.
Amethyst, I guess.
Oh, Amethyst, yeah, I was that's like, I'm doing that on the side a little bit, trying to get my mining gloves back, so I should have known that one. I'm trying to think of, like, I guess they've also given us more pots in Herblore over time with your
Oh yeah.
anti-venoms and your ancient brews and stuff.
Yeah.
Alright.
But for combat, we've gone from tier I th- did we didn't even have God Wars Dungeon until a few months or a year after Old School was released. So I think
Correct.
Barrow's equipment was pretty much the highest end gear we had.
Mhm,
And now we're at level 80 armors and level 80, 82 attack and 85 ranged armor now or weapons now.
mhm, and then is the new staff 85 for magic as well?
I believe so.
So, yeah, we're getting up there. I think
Yeah, we
that
are.
the future of Raids 4 will kind of they'll probably be on, like, a tier 90 weapon.
Yeah, that will be interesting.
Were you around in RS3 for the first tier 90 weapon?
Those
I think they were the Drygores from Calphite King.
I don't think I was.
'Cause I re
I remember Torva and Pernix and the other one, but and that came from player-owned ports, but
no,
I
that
don't
that was
really.
from Nex.
Was it?
Yeah, because they had I know what you're talking about. They did have that armor from player-owned ports as well. I don't remember what it's called, though.
And those were also tier 80 though, right?
I think so, yeah. That's a good question, though. Well, I suppose we can move on from that now. We've talked quite a bit about RS3 and stuff like that, so but it's good to talk with people who have had the experience as well, because I didn't quit RS3 until about 2015.
Oh,
I
okay.
I played old school on and off during that time, but I never, like, really made the full switch for a while. So, as for your motivations, I know you've said that rune crafting will be your first tuner mill, and you like how virtual 120 will look on the skill bar. What is your motivation to keep that going?
So I just I just really like those clean numbers, I guess. And I've always done base skills pretty much. Like I started with base 70s, then 80s, then 90s, and finally 99. And once I maxed, I guess, I just decided to keep on going and I found that I was still having fun. So I figured why not just keep on going and see how far I can go.
And how do you avoid any kind of burnout from RuneScape? I know not just myself, but many people have felt the pull away from the game after you've done many days in a row, or you've hit a big goal that you set for yourself, and you're like, okay, now what? So you have like that kind of week to maybe multiple month lapse where you're like, just don't know what to do anymore.
So for me, I guess I would be someone that skill hops a lot. So meaning that I do different skills whenever I get bored of a different one. And Yeah, and I think the best way for me to avoid getting burnt out is to just not feel obligated to do the most efficient methods
Mhm.
if I don't enjoy them. Like, for example, if I was training mining, I it would be much better to do 50 hours of motherlode mine or something for 2.5 million experience instead of forcing myself to do 10 hours of granite and getting 1.2 million experience and then just feeling that kind of what's the word? The feeling of just that feeling of not wanting to log in anymore.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're saying. I also can't think of a good word for it though.
I
Like
guess dread.
I was gonna say almost maybe dread. Yeah. You ever hit that point before where you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore?
I don't think so. Not in old school, at least.
It's always good to have that game where you can keep coming back to it, and you always got something to do.
Yeah.
Which leads me into: do you play any other games?
So currently, I do not, but in the past, I did play a lot of Hearthstone, and
Good
I
game.
eventually, yeah, I eventually stopped playing after the Naxxramas expansion,
Hmm.
and I also really enjoyed the card game Chronicle of the RuneScape Legends,
Hmm.
but they abandoned it, unfortunately.
They banned it pretty quickly after it came out too, right?
Yeah, they did.
That's unfortunate. I think it could have been like you said. Like I also really enjoy those like card game style games. Did you ever delve into like the Underlords or the Teamfight Tactics from League of Legends?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Auto chess, I was really into it for like I played it for like 100 hours over 2 weeks, and then they
Wow.
announced they announced an update for it that was like changing how Underlords was going to work. That's why I played Dota Underlords for a while, and then they like completely changed like how it worked, and they kept doing like balancing changes and stuff, and I just was like, I can't, I just don't want to do this anymore. It's not the game I fell in love with.
Yeah.
Is there, that's a good point to move into as well. Do you ever think that there's going to be an update akin to our evolution of combat that will kind of ruin the love that you have for the game? Or have you kind of stuck through thick and thin and been like, well, I can pretty much get past whatever's going to happen?
I think the main thing would be microtransactions, I guess. If they introduce that into old school, then I would be pretty disappointed, but I don't think I would quit anyways.
In the word microtransaction, do you want to mean like a pay to win style, like you can buy spins and get XP, kind of like how you could do a Skill of Fortune, or more cosmetic microtransactions?
I would rather not see any type of microtransaction.
Hmm.
And I know that bonds are pretty much microtransactions, but because I don't um I guess they're fine because people will buy gold anyways, and if it's coming from Jagex, it's helping them, and it allowed us to start paying for our membership with in-game gold instead. So I think it was overall a positive. Plus, they did kind of shoehorn it in with it being a requirement in order to bring free to play to old school.
I forgot free to play wasn't like in the game for like the first like year and a half. Like it was like there was like a 30-day trial or something like that, or like a 2 week trial.
Yeah, something like that.
That's so weird to think about because we have so many like crazy free to play gamers who do like crazy things just in the free to play community.
Yeah. like mid-level skiller.
Man, the goat, honestly.
Yeah, for real.
Um, have you ever made an iron or considered making an iron of any sort?
Yeah, I do. I have a free-to-play Ultimate Ironman, as well as a free-to-play Hardcore Ironman, and I did enjoy playing them, but for the near future, I won't be playing on them because I need to continue making money for my main account, I guess, which is my skiller, in order to fund the buyables and that stuff. But I do really look forward to finishing all those buyables because then I will not feel obligated to have to make money for that. And then I can just play on alts for fun. So I probably will end up going back to playing on either the Ultimate or Hardcore Ironman and free to play.
That's a good way to put it, playing on alts for fun, because my next question is going to be actually, how do you feel about the altscape meta?
Um,
As a main, at least. I guess even irons have altscape metas as well, unfortunately.
yeah, that's a good question. I do dislike it on one hand, but it does help me to get less bored, I guess, while playing on my main account. And it is nice to not have to focus purely on making money, but it's also been kind of discouraging knowing that I guess like with all the EHP methods nowadays, they pretty much assume you have access to unlimited funds pretty much.
Hmm.
And I just don't really like how they're not really consistent. Like where's the line that they draw where having this amount of money is assumed? Like rune crafting, you are pretty much assumed to have enough money to do hire runners for lavas and get like up to 240k something experience per hour,
Hmm.
which can cost like 30 million GP per hour. And but then there's like crystal armor shards for smithing and crafting that also costs a ton of money. But then there's also Menophyte remedies, which are a relatively new potion, and those are not considered EHP yet, even though those are actually around as cheap as magic potions. So
Is that the one you
I'm
make with
not
the
really.
white? Is that the one you make with the Lily of the Sand?
Yes.
What does that potion even do?
So basically, it restores your drained stats, combat stats, every 15 seconds by a certain amount.
Oh,
So they're not really useful right now, but I I would be very surprised if they did not release a boss that constantly drained your stats or didn't allow you to use any boosts to stats. So then you could like use brews or something and just use those potions as well to keep your stats topped up.
that's interesting. Actually, like I haven't read most of like the new potions that have come out, like the Ancient Brew and that kind of stuff. I'm kind of unfamiliar with what they do, so that's yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if you're right on that, that they'll release a mechanic of some sort. So I've only got a couple questions for you left. So my first question is something that I know you've dealt with recently. And I know if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. And that was your false 2-day that you got.
Yeah, I was given a false 2-day ban, and that was October 21st. And it was a huge shock, to be honest. I'd never been banned before, and I'd never even been muted before. So, yeah, it was pretty distressing. I obviously, appealed it through the traditional means immediately, but was very quickly denied with what looked like an automated message. And that's pretty much that.
And have you reached out to any of the mods that run the community managing post or anything of that sort to maybe try and get this sorted out? I know you did make a post on Reddit as well. Did you get any traction from anybody?
Yeah, I did get about like 600 upvotes or something, but then it was eventually removed because it broke the rules of the subreddit. You're not supposed to appeal bans or whatever. Um,
Which is crazy
I've
because I'm
also
sure you've seen many people do it before.
Yeah, exactly. And I've also tweeted the anti-cheat specialist on Twitter, but I've not heard a response yet from them.
Well, let's hope something comes from that because having a 2-day on your account never, whether it was true for anybody else or false for this, in this case, it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it doesn't. And the ominous message that says if you are caught again, then it will become a permanent ban. That's especially does not feel good.
Yeah. Especially because, like, if they hit with a false one again, 'cause I know we all saw the wave of bans from the TOA glitch. I don't know if you remember, do you remember that at all when that was happening?
Yeah, I do.
So I'm subscribed to Seven, one of the three guys who got perm banned, and he was talking about it. And I'm like, it's crazy that they only perm banned some people and then temp banned everybody else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure that, knowing if there's a wave of something like that happens and you accidentally do something that they'll be like, hey, you're screwed for everybody. Well, let's get on a more positive note then. So when I said I had two questions for you, I meant I had three. My second to last question is going to be in regards to work life gaming balance. How do you juggle your consistent hours whilst maintaining whatever else it is you do in real life?
Um Honestly, I don't really have any real life obligations at the moment. So most of my free time does go to old school.
Mm-hmm. And I know you've started streaming a little bit as well. So, how's that going? Has it made you feel a little bit more comfortable going forward? Not getting a false or anything like that because you can literally prove what you were doing with video evidence.
Yeah, that was the main reason why I started streaming. And it has been pretty enjoyable. And I would like to continue doing it.
And I will of course link your stream in the description below for any of you who want to watch. Do you have any consistent times you just stream, or is it kind of just whenever you're feeling it?
Yeah, pretty much whenever I'm feeling it.
All right. And then my last question. I know this one will be a little bit shorter, but that's okay. Sometimes they don't all have to go for an hour and a half. Um, so my last question is EHP and your mindset behind high ranks. So we've already talked a little bit about the EHP rates, what that does with alts and all that kind of stuff, and then the mindset you have behind your experience goals. So has there ever been a point where you wanted to go for ranks, or was it just kind of what you had said before, where you were like, well, I just wanted to see how far I could get.
I never really cared about ranks too much until I guess when I realized that runecrafting didn't have as many people with 200 mil experience and that I could get a sub 100 rank. And I don't really, yeah, I still don't really care about ranks too much, but it's mostly just about personal progress.
And do you feel maybe not happy isn't the word, but like accomplished with what you've done so far?
Yeah, definitely.
And does that like mild accomplishment sense kind of lead you on to keep going because you want to feel like, you know, whether it be a game or, people who go for big things in real life, whatever it is, any sense of accomplishment of something that you set out to do, like I feel like it's just a good feeling.
Yeah, it really is.
Do you envision a 200 mil all in the future?
Yeah, I do eventually.
Eventually. All right. Well, that's all the questions I've got for you today. Do you have anything you want to tell the people?
Um, I guess regarding the false ban, I never really like all those posts on Reddit and about people appealing their false bans, and then seeing all those comments, basically shutting them down and trying to get them to admit that they cheated or whatever. I guess I did always kind of agree with those comments because I never really thought that their detection system was not that great and that it people absolutely do get flagged for things that they didn't do, and it's not a great feeling at all when it happens to you.
I'm sure it's something you don't want to see happen to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for chatting with me, Plundering. I appreciate your time. I hope this was at least somewhat mildly enjoyable for you. It took you away from the runecrafting grind, at least mentally, for a little bit of time.
I'm actually still doing it right now.
Yeah, that's why I said mentally and not physically, because I figured you were probably still runecrafting right now. Can't
Yeah.
stop. I mean, I'm the whole time when I record these, I'm doing my, eventually I'll have done enough podcasts. I'll have 200 mil agility. That'll be it.
That'll be nice.
That would be a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again. And I will link all of your things down below. Do you have any other social medias that you use for your RuneScape accounts, or pretty much just Twitch right now?
It's pretty much just Twitch and yeah, that's it pretty
Okay.
much.
I'll be linking your Twitch, your temple page, and your high scores page below. As of time of recording, once again, 11/6/2022, Plundering is, you said 11.8 mil away?
11.2 mil now.
11.2 mil. So as time goes on, you guys can always check up on him, watch his progress, check his temple page, watch those numbers go burr.
Yeah.
All right, you have a good afternoon/evening, and I will talk to you again soon.
All right. You have a good evening as well.